You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
It's Monday evening, and you're listening to Jo and Gemma on the Supernaturelle show.
Good evening and welcome to this week's Supernatural Self? No, I'll try that again. It's actually called the Supernaturelle Show with myself, Gemma, and the beautiful Jolene. Hi, Jo.
Oh, I'm not feeling very beautiful tonight, but thanks, Hern. How are you?
Oh, you're always beautiful, woman. Give over.
Oh, look at you anyway. Bloody out and about on Saturday. I bet you looked absolutely stunning.
Well, I did a Facebook Live actually just before I went out, so
I saw it, and you weren't on your own. So don't ever say that you're on your own.
Oh, you abandoned me. I had the boss lady, that boss lady that's listening to us right now, making us do a live Q&A. What's that all about?
Oh, I think it just gets everybody to kind of know us who don't know us and our crazy little selves, isn't it?
And that might be very much true, but we're a package. We should have done it together. I shouldn't have been alone.
Package. I like that saying.
For a package, you buy one, you get one free.
Oh, you're such a nutcase. But we tonight we've got an amazing guest, haven't we, tonight?
Oh, I have been so excited for this show for ages. It was hard to keep it under wraps, actually, Jo. When we first got this show booked in, I really wanted to just tell the world, but I thought, no, I'll let them wait a little bit.
Well, I'm glad you have, because we've got the pleasure of being. Are we the first people?
No, she's done one other radio show or a few others, but yeah, well, first now. Yeah.
That's good, because she was on. I think this lovely lady was on our really good friend show, the Paranormal Exchange, last week.
Yes.
And we love Todd and we love Jeff, don't we? And the guys over in the lovely US of A. So anyway, without further ado, Gemma, are we going to introduce this lovely lady?
Well, I think we should. I don't see the point in wasting on pleasantries, as always, Jo. So tonight, guys, we are very, very pleased to introduce you to the beautiful Amanda Sparrow Large. Hi, Amanda.
Hello, hi.
How are you, my love?
I'm good.
So, well, shall we just crack on straight away with the interview? Because I have so many questions for you, Amanda.
Yeah, sure. Far away. Where do you want me to start?
Well, shall we start at the very beginning? So anybody that isn't aware of you was married to Jack.
Yes.
And Jack is he 300 years old?
Yes.
And he was a pirate, is that right?
Yes, that's
right.
Correct.
Okay, so before we start delving into your relationship with Jack, how did you and Jack meet?
Okay, so I guess the short version is that I began practicing witchcraft in 2010. Before that, I was very much agnostic. Wouldn't go as far as to say atheist, but probably not far off it. I had lots of spiritual experiences looking back on it now, but I always found some logical way to explain it. I really didn't care very much about what happened after we died. I was too busy just living my physical life. And in 2010, my son died. He died suddenly, and his death was unexplained. So that hit me really hard, as you can imagine. And at that point, people were saying things to me like, oh, he's an angel, or or he's with Jesus. And I didn't believe any of this, just being honest with you. To me, he was just the ashes that was sitting in the urn, on the table. And
Bless your heart.
I just didn't really get any closure on it. So I started to do a bit of research just for my own peace of mind, what I believed.
Yeah.
So that's when I came across paganism, I guess, and the whole theory about energy. Energy can't be created or destroyed. It just changes form. And what had really struck me by my son's death was, again, as I said, it was sudden. So I had seen him about 3 hours before he died.
Amanda, how old was your son when he passed away, lovely?
He was 3 months.
Oh, bless your heart.
Yeah, so I'd seen him before he died, put him down to sleep, and 3 hours later he was dead. So the first thing that struck me when he was dead was, this isn't my child. This isn't my son. It's just flesh and bones. It's a corpse. And there was something different that, I just didn't feel the connect there anymore. And everybody was like, oh, you're in shock or whatever. But they weren't really getting what I meant. It wasn't, I knew it was the body of the person who was my child, but it was just different. There was something different. He wasn't there anymore. And this very much connected in with the energy, because obviously when we die, our energy moves on. It leaves the physical body. So this very much resonated with me when I started to read up about energy. Mm-hmm. So this was the only thing out of all the different theories that kind of made any logical sense to me at all. So I wanted to learn more and I wanted to explore more. So I suppose that the first thing that I came across was Wicca. And I was very, very, very eager to learn more, and I found myself a tutor, and kind of sprang from there, and began practicing witchcraft in 2010, and did my initiations in Wicca, and just it became very much part of my life. So when I say that it was part of my life, I guess it's the same as anybody that has any religion. It's not 24/7. Like when you're out having a good time, you're not thinking about your religion. But when something bad happens to you, that's when you're like, oh, what can I do about this? Let's go to God, or let's go to our faith. So so it was very much like that. It wasn't something I obsessed over. So again, as I said, very much something that I would have done meditations, working with deities, guides, my own spiritual team. But I wasn't a medium. I didn't practice mediumship, although part of witchcraft is connecting with spirits. But it's mostly higher realm spirits, like gods and goddesses and ancestors, things like that. It's not the same as going and reading for somebody whose loved one has passed over. It's a different path. So in 2015, I was just doing a meditation circle, and I would obviously have used protection. Anybody that does any kind of spiritual work, should know about spiritual protection. I mean, they shouldn't even be attempting to do anything unless they know how to protect themselves to begin with. I mean, that's the very first thing you learn. Yeah. So I would have always used spiritual protection, and this strange energy came into the room, and I knew it wasn't any of my spiritual team, because when you work with energy, you learn what different energies feels like, because everybody's energy is unique, just like we're all unique. So no two energies are exactly the same. So that's part of what you learn to discern what different energies feel like. So I knew it wasn't an energy I was familiar with. So I just asked it to leave. Didn't connect at all. Second time it happened, exactly the same thing. I just, I was like, it shouldn't be here. I don't want to communicate. And that was it. So then the third time I was in my car, and I just pulled up outside my house, and this same energy appeared again in the passenger seat beside me. So I was like, this entity, I knew he was male. I was like, he definitely wants something. He wants to communicate with me. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna like open up and just ask what he wants, because there's some reason why 3 times 3 is a very powerful number in witchcraft. So I was like, right, okay, so this means something. So I opened up, and the first thing he said to me is, I'm dead, And it was kind of humorous and witty, but there was a hint, a touch of sadness in it as well. And I could feel that empathically, that he was quite sad about that, but he was making a joke about it. So I was like, yeah, I know that. So then he introduced himself to me as Jack Sparrow Teague. And I was, right.
When he first said his name, so obviously most people will have just heard Jack Sparrow and ended up that. Did you at that point think, yeah, right, of course, Jack Sparrow, of course you are. Okay.
Well, there was two things in my mind at that time. Number one is, spirits can be very deceptive and they will tell you anything if they want to talk to you. So my first gut feeling was like, yeah, right, no, you're not, because Jack Sparrow is a fictional character. And then the second thing is that I did some work as a Jack Sparrow impersonator. I've always, now it wasn't contrary to what the media says, I wasn't a professional, it was a hobby. My full-time job was in retail, so yeah, it wasn't anything near as glamorous as pretending to be Johnny Depp all of the time.
That's wishful thinking, eh?
I worked in retail during the day, and I did this, as a hobby of weekends and stuff like that. So, and I was also writing a book about my experiences as a Jack Sparrow impersonator and how I got into it. So so I was very interested in the whole era of piracy, and so then you have to say, am I picking up this message right, or is my own mind coming into this? Because I mean, sometimes when you are doing spiritual work, you've got a brain, and sometimes your brain does kick in, and
exactly.
You have to be really,
subconsciously
from spirit and what's your own brain.
Subconsciously, you can receive messages from yourself. So yeah.
Exactly.
Completely agree.
So I was like, well, it's one of those two things, because it's definitely like not Jack Sparrow, because he's not real. So I cut off contact straight away, and I was like, no, this isn't continuing, because I'm not happy with with the way this is going. So following that, I mean, on a regular basis, he used to pop in, and I mean, I knew his energy because he had popped in several times, and eventually, I mean, he just kind of hung around so much. Eventually, I was just like, right, okay, if you are who you say you are, you need to prove this to me. You need to tell me some things that I don't know, because, there's not a lot about this era that I don't know. I've researched it. I'm writing a book on it. So, so again, I mean, as I said, I wasn't a medium. I have studied mediumship since then, because obviously I wanted to learn how to communicate better with him. But, I know now that you're supposed to look for points of verification, and that's very easy to do when somebody's sitting in front of you and they knew the person who's passed over. But when somebody died 300 years ago, I mean, who do you look to for verification? Did he have a birthmark here? I mean, what did he look like?
And not only that, but documentation back then as well isn't what it is today. So it would have been really hard to trace.
Absolutely. So it was very, very hard to get points of verification. And I mean, certain things he told me, I was like, well, I actually didn't know that. But then I'm like, well, maybe I did read it on Google somewhere when I was doing research. So there was nothing that kind of jumped out at me that I'm like, I really can say 100% I believe this. Until he told me, I think it would have been about maybe 3 or 4 months into the communication. At this point, he told me that if I went to my family tree, that I would find that we were actually linked ancestrally, that his surname Teague was actually in my maternal family tree. So that was something that I could do. So off I went and started looking up the records on my mother's side of the family. And sure enough, when I went back 3 generations, one of my grandmothers, great-great-grandmothers, her maiden name was Teague. So I could not have possibly known that. So then I was like, okay, right there, he's telling me the truth here. So the whole Sparrow thing is just it's just a nickname. Like, that wasn't a surname of his. His surname was Teague, and he was actually John Teague, not Jack Teague, but everybody called him Jack. For short.
But again, back in the day, that's not something that is uncommon. I know loads of elderly people with one name, but yet they're called something completely different. So
exactly, because I mean, possibly, on the ship or whatever, there was possibly loads of Johns. So, somebody was called Johnny and somebody would be called John and somebody else would be called Jack, and I mean, that's kind of the way it was. Like, my mother, there was 2 Marys in her family, and the other one got called Mary. She got called Maureen, but her actual name was Mary. So yeah. I mean, it was pretty common. So so then I was like, wow, okay. That was quite a shock. So I guess after that, then I started to really listen to him and communicate with him and become quite good friends, I guess. And we communicated a lot. And another couple of months, I suppose, later, I kind of discovered that I actually had romantic feelings for him. And this was really, really weird because I did not know you could have a relationship with a spirit, and I'd met some like really, really shitty relationship choices in the past, and I was like,
I hear you, girl.
Takes the biscuit, really, I mean, this one really takes the biscuit. He's actually dead. So
can't say fairer than that, I suppose, Amanda.
Yeah, so I was like, I don't really know what I could go, what I could do with this, because it's kind of like you have like a crush on somebody you shouldn't have a crush on, and you're like, what do you do here? Because because he's dead, so there's nothing you can do with it. So I didn't say anything to anybody. I just kept it to myself and like kind of hoped it would just go away. And so it was in the January of 2016 that he turned around to me and he was like, we could actually be together, we could have a relationship, and if that's what you wanted, or something along those lines. And I was like, I was kind of taken aback first that he'd actually picked it up, because I thought I'd hidden it very well, but obviously not that well. But then I was like, well, how's that going to work? So he was like, yeah, actually people can have relationships with spirits. So he told me a little bit about it, but then obviously I went off and did my own research anyway, as you do, and discovered that I mean, in shamanism it's very common. In Haiti voodoo traditions it's very common, and just to say that he was half Haitian, so his mother was from Haiti, and he grew up very much with the voodoo tradition, and that's what he would have practiced.
Amanda, just before we move on, can I just ask, whereabouts was Jack operated as when he was a pirate? So do you know whereabouts he was based, if you like?
Mainly the Caribbean, but he did travel all over the world. He traveled to the Indian Ocean, and he traveled all over. That was his actual ambition, was to travel all the seas of the world. So yeah, he traveled around quite a bit. But yeah,
did he manage to do it all before he passed away?
He reckons he did, but whether he did or he didn't, I don't know. He's quite arrogant in a way, so he would boast about things that maybe were a little bit more ambitious than what he actually did. But yeah.
So you get to this point where you both have feelings for each other, or you definitely discovered your feelings for him. You went off and did your research, how can this happen? So what did you find out during your research?
Well, I found out, as I said, in shamanism and voodoo culture, it's quite common. I obviously also found out about the other elements, like Doris Blyther from the entity, incubus, succubus type spirits as well. So there was the positive end of it and the negative end of it. So at that point, I went to some of my mentors, because, I had learned from people who, at that point, I would have considered more knowledgeable than me in certain areas. And I went to 3 different people, and I was like, have you ever heard of this? Is it safe? How does it work? And surprisingly enough, all 3 of them actually knew exactly how it worked. And some of them, 2 of them, in fact, had sex with spirits. So
you see, this is where it gets really interesting, Amanda, because please excuse me for the way that I'm going to put this, but I mean, I could try and put it as diplomatically as possible, but that's just not me, to be fair, Amanda. What you see is what you get.
Sure.
So a lot of people will just assume that you are batshit crazy girl for having a relationship with a spirit. And especially moving on to like the sex part of it, how can you have sex with something that's not actually physically here? Is it like a tantric kind of sex?
Well, I know what tantric sex is, but I'm not aware that I've ever actually done it. So I really can't actually comment on that, but I'll tell you how it kind of works. And this is the way that I explain it, that's quite simply explain that the people can maybe relate to. If you've ever been, we'll start off at the basics. If you've ever been in a creepy building or a haunted building, and you feel that shiver up your spine and you feel somebody touch your shoulder, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's feeling spirit energy. Then take it a step forward. If you've been to a medium, really good medium, and your loved one is there, a medium can maybe help you to feel them touch your face, touch your hand, give you a hug. If it's a baby, sometimes you might be able to, feel that baby in your arms. So that's also feeling spirit energy. So to take it into an intimate level, you just have to learn to do that really, really well to be able to literally feel what the spirit energy is doing to you. And it didn't certainly happen overnight. It took several months to be able to get to that level. And I'm sure probably not everybody could. But yeah, I mean, that is pretty much how it works in exactly the same way. But obviously you're taking it to, a whole other level to just feeling somebody touch your hand. But yeah, so you can feel what the spirit energy is doing. Obviously, there is no physical body there, but you can actually feel it as if there were.
Okay. Jo?
That's really strange, because obviously just listening to that, and obviously there are going to be people out there who probably sit there and say, oh my goodness, as if that is going to happen. But I think obviously communicating with spirit on a higher level like that, you are going to have certain experiences. And I mean, obviously I am a medium, and there are certain things that obviously not sexual or anything like that, but it's more of a, I feel how people have passed away and things like that. But I think listening to you, I mean, I am going to be brutally honest now. I mean, I did watch you on a number of occasions and thought, sure, this woman's balmy, but I actually, you're very, very, very proficient in your knowledge about, Wicca, about paganism and things like that. And it's quite refreshing, actually.
Well, you see, I think what kind of makes it a little bit different from simply being a medium is because I've learned how to practice witchcraft. So, drawing down the moon, channeling the goddess, which is very powerful energy. Then I've also, unknowingly at the time, kind of, because I would practice very traditional Celtic, Irish type witchcraft. And that has roots in a lot of shamanic traditions. So shamans, Native Americans, all those tribal religions embody spirits all the time. They do have sexual relationships with spirits. So because I guess my kind of thing was a bit of a mixing pot of different traditions of journeying, mediumship. And, I think that's possibly why it worked for me in a sense, because I have learned mediumship, since then. And I think if I just learned mediumship, I don't think I would have been able to go, that extra mile, to kind of get into that trance-like state that I would have been able to feel spirit as strongly. But because, I've kind of learned about the other traditions first, I think it kind of, all worked together, so to speak.
Yeah. Have you got any Romany, kind of Romany gypsy within your family?
Not that I'm aware of. No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, we've got a question in the chat room, and one of the people, Stephanie, is actually saying it's just crossed her mind that how did you know that he wasn't just wanting to get married, and once he married, that would have helped him to cross over?
Sorry, could you just repeat that again? I'm just not clear.
How, does it ever cross your mind that he may have had unfinished business and just wanted to get married, and then once obviously he's been married, he wanted to kind of cross over? Or
yes, I mean, obviously, technically if a spirit is hanging around 300 years, I mean, that was one of the first questions I asked him. It's like, why haven't you crossed over? Why haven't you reincarnated? Why are you still here after 300 years? I mean, that would have been something that was discussed very, very early on, way before it even got to a romantic type relationship. He told me that the reason why he hadn't crossed over, the reason why he hadn't, he didn't want to reincarnate. That was his main reason. He loved the life that he had in that particular life. He felt it was cut short because he was executed, and he didn't want to cross over and move on because he knew he'd have to reincarnate. And technically, when we decide to leave that life behind, we have to put that life to bed, or we have to give it back to Mother Earth or whatever. So we leave that incarnation, we leave who we were behind, and he didn't want to do that.
Do we know why he was executed, Amanda?
Yes, I do know why he was executed. He was dark skinned. Obviously he was half Haitian, and slavery was a very, very big thing at the time, and that was his biggest fear of becoming a slave, and that's why he kind of chose a life of piracy, I guess, or like this is what he told me anyway. So yes, he was helping slaves escape, which he did on a regular basis, and he got caught and was executed along with the slaves.
Do you know how he was executed? I'm so sorry for asking all these
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, he was hung.
Oh, bless him.
So yeah, so he did not want to leave behind that life. And at that time, I just took that at face value and accepted that that was his free will decision. Obviously, as we go a bit further into the story, we'll find out why that's not a great idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, at that time, I was, well, that's his free will decision. If he doesn't want to reincarnate and he doesn't want to cross over, why should he be made do that? And that was very much the mindset I was coming from at that particular time. So I accepted that. And I accepted the fact that, that he very much still wanted to live in the physical world, even though he technically didn't have a physical body. So, to just go back to the spiritual sex thing, I mean, a lot of people assume that it's masturbation. That's not. If you are masturbating, then
I was
that's
just
the spirit
going to
watching
say
you masturbate. There is masturbation involved in sex magic, but that's a completely different thing to spiritual sex, to having sex with a spirit.
Like masturbation is exactly that. It is masturbation.
Yeah, and that is incorporated into some sex magic rituals and stuff like that. But that's a different area completely. That's another thing by itself. You've also got, I mean, talk about spiritual sex. I mean, even back to the Bible, they talk about incubus and succubus, demonic spirits that have sex with humans. And I mean, there was that case of Doris Leiter and the entity. I mean, there's loads. If you look it up, I mean, even Keisha, who's more, a fairly recent modern pop star, she claims to have had sex with a spirit. So if you actually do look it up, there is quite a lot of cases of people that, that reckon that they have had sexual encounters with spirits. So it's not really something new. It's just something that's not really talked about very much. And usually it's portrayed in quite a negative light. So, I mean, if a demonic spirit like an incubus or a succubus can have sex with a human, then why can't an earthbound spirit? And this is the kind of thing that gets me a lot. Is that I can get if somebody's atheist and they don't believe in anything and they're like, that's rubbish or whatever. That's fair enough. I can take that. Everybody's entitled to believe or to not believe in anything. But, people that will say, well, I believe in that you can get a reading from a loved one, but I don't believe you can talk to somebody who passed 300 years ago. There's not a time limit on it. You either believe you can communicate with the dead or you can't. So, I mean, you can't say, well, an incubus or a succubus can have sex with a human, but an earthbound spirit can't. It's kind of double standards and a bit hypocritical. Like, you either believe or you don't. And if you don't believe it, that's fine. But, I mean, you can't discount the possibilities of talking to somebody who died 300 years ago if you believe you've had a message from somebody who died 10 years ago.
Well, I can't agree more, to be honest. I, as a paranormal investigator, and that is exactly what I do. So I enter dark buildings in the dead of the night looking for spirits. What is the difference?
Yeah, and I mean, probably in your line of work, more so than mediumship, you would be encountering older spirits who haven't moved on. So, I mean, in paranormal investigation, those are pretty much the type of spirits you're going to connect with. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Right, so let's move back onto the whole you and Jack, because we can go off on a tangent left, right, and centre.
Oh, I know. It's such a massive area.
I mean, the good news is we don't have a time limit, Amanda. So literally, we can take as long as we want. So if we do end up going off on a tangent later on, that's fine. But
right, assuming that my son or my dogs don't come up like looking for something.
Yeah. So you and Jack, you get to the point where you are having a sexual relationship.
Yes, indeed.
So how exactly does that work? Like, I'm probably going to sound so naive, it's unreal, and I do not want to disrespect you at all. But I mean, I'm a single girl, so I'm probably speaking to the wrong person. I ain't got a clue what it's like dating these days. But how did the whole dating thing work? Because with two physical beings, you would go out on a date, you would go for a meal, have drinks, cinema, walks, whatever. So how did the dating with you and Jack? Do you mind just calling him Jack, or would you prefer we called him John? Actually?
No, Jack was what he liked being called. So
okay,
yeah.
So how did the whole dating situation work with you guys?
Well, I guess because we knew each other very, very well at this point. I mean, we talked several times a week. So it was kind of like just a progression onwards because, I mean, we were actually really good friends at this time and spent a lot of time together. You know, I mean, when I talk about talking, and I mean, people assume that I like saw him physically and that I heard his physical voice. I didn't. This is all done in mediumship, you know. So I mean, it wasn't a case that I was hearing and seeing things that weren't there. All our communication was all done through various forms of mediumship. And as you know, there's different types of mediumship. There's trance mediumship. There's mental mediumship. There's physical mediumship. So I mean, you know. So it was all different forms of journeying and mediumship. So I mean, yeah. So when we got to the point that we were kind of, you know, getting it on, so to speak, it really was just a progression from being friends. Now, a lot of people kind of talk to me about, you know, as you say, the physical element. He didn't have a physical body, so he wasn't physically here to do anything in the physical world. So for me, it kind of worked. And I guess I'm going to like go backwards here a little bit to just talk about, I had like a lot of bad relationship experiences, and I'd always kind of known that I was different. And I'd been in relationships with men and with women, and I didn't really kind of ever feel it was right or ever really enjoy it, so to speak. And it was only in 2014 that I was working over in Scotland, and I discovered demisexuality and asexuality. And I very much identified with that because it was always to do with, you know, the chemistry or the connection, if you want to call it, with the person and not with the physical body. So once I had met that discovery, I actually had cast a spell or put intention out to the universe to meet a soulmate. And this was about 6 months before Jack had came in. So technically my protection did work because I had put an intention out to the universe. So that's how he actually got in the beginning through my spiritual protection, is because I had put out this attention to the universe. Having said that, at that point, you have to be very specific with spell casting. I didn't specify I wanted a living physical soulmate because I didn't know there was any other kind. So it kind of worked, but I just attracted somebody who was in spirit and not in the physical. So when it got to the point of the relationship, the fact he didn't have a physical body didn't really bother me, because for people that are asexual or demisexual, it's the physical element of sex that kind of creates the issue. So this worked really well for me. It was a perfect relationship because you know, we could be intimate, but there was no physical body there. So for me, it was perfect. As regards going out or on dates or stuff like that, I mean, to begin with, I mean, I wouldn't be a person that's crazy into going out anyway. I'm kind of past that stage of my life, you know. I'm in my 40s, so I mean, I'm kind of more than happy to just have date nights sitting at home. So I mean, we would watch movies together, but yeah, I mean, sometimes we would go out walks on the beach, or you know, things like that, you know, where I would just go to a beach or whatever and light a fire and then connect with them or whatever. So that kind of thing. Then just a little twist on that there. A friend of mine then actually, while communicating with Jack, met a friend of Jack's who was called Matthew, and she got into a relationship with Matthew for a short while. So then we used to kind of go on double dates together, which kind of was better because I wasn't sitting somewhere entirely on my own. There was the two of us there, and then we'd connect to both of them. Yeah. But it didn't last very long between her and Matthew. So then it was pretty much just back to me and Jack again.
Oh, bless you. It sounds like most of my relationships, that, to be fair. I'm right there with your friend on that one.
Bless you.
So I guess then, I mean, he just said to me then one day, like, about that, you know, we can get married, and it was no big proposal or anything like that, you know. He just suggested about getting married, and I was like, I knew at this point that it was a thing because obviously I'd done my research, and I was like, yeah, if we're going to be doing this and we're going to be like in this kind of relationship, then yeah, it would be nice to make a commitment. So that was really it. There was no big fireworks for the engagement. It was just something we decided one night that we were going to do. the next question, I suppose, was how do you get married to a spirit?
That is my exact next question. Yeah.
Oh, I must be psychic.
Jo says that to me all the time.
Yeah, so there are certain countries where you can marry a spirit, Haiti being one of them. It's called posthumous marriage in France. So under certain conditions, you can marry somebody who's dead in France. And there's a few other obscure countries that you can marry in, the UK and Ireland not being one of them. It had never ever been done in the UK and Ireland, so there was no precedent really in the law whether you could or you couldn't do it. But obviously you would have had to find somebody who can perform a legal marriage to do it. Which I thought was going to be a massive problem. However, I just looked up pagan officiants, and the very first one that I found, I rang, made an appointment, went to see him, and he knew all about spirit marriage, and he was like, yeah, I'm totally cool with that, yeah, let's do it. So, so I had my officiant who was legally allowed to perform marriages. The problem being then that because it's not legal in the UK and Ireland, you're going to have to go somewhere and do it somewhere where it is legal, which meant travelling like to some faraway country, which I didn't really want to do because I wanted to have a big wedding here, and I have rescue dogs and I have a special needs son, and it wasn't going to be that easy for me to up the sticks and go off to a foreign country. So tried to kind of brainstorm, is there any like loophole that we could get out of it to do it a bit closer. So my daughter had just gotten married in Las Vegas, and she had came back and registered her marriage with her paperwork when she came back. So I was like, well, if she can do that, what about we went out into international waters and got the legal guy to marry us, to fill in all the paperwork and give us our marriage certificate, and then I come back and register my marriage here. Why wouldn't that work? The same as somebody gets married abroad. So we looked into it, and there didn't seem to be anything that would stop us from doing that. So yeah, so that's basically what we did. We went with that idea, and we chartered a boat. Initially, we were going to do it between the UK and Ireland because that would have been like a lot less hassle. But unfortunately, there is no spot between Ireland and England that is international waters. So we had to go out into the Atlantic Ocean. So we left from Ballycastle, which is up at the very, very top of Northern Ireland, and we went. Sorry, I'm just going to go back in here. I did say that I was going to be disturbed by children or dogs.
It's okay, don't worry. We're used to it, honestly. My children walk in, because I hide in my bedroom.
Okay.
While we're doing on the radio, and my children just walk in all the time, or my Alexa will be on the side and she'll chip in with a 2 pennies worth. So don't worry about interruptions. We're used to that on the Supernatural.
Okay,
so.
Cool. So we went out from Ballycastle, which is up at the top of Northern Ireland, and it took us about 4 hours to get out to where we needed to be, which was international waters. We were only on a little small boat. And it was, oh my God, it was so rough. I mean, we were just getting thrown all over the deck, and didn't check with anybody whether or not we could only bring 20-something people out in the boat because of health and safety. Didn't check whether any of them suffered with seasickness or anything like that. Of course, because it was a wedding, we went up in a limo. We had bottles and bottles and bottles of champagne before getting on the boat, and you can imagine how that turned out.
Oh, Amanda. Oh,
Not
no.
I'm sure there must have been some green faces on that boat.
Yeah, I mean, people were sick. Okay, so eventually we got out to the spot, and he dropped the anchor and thought that would help, but it didn't. It just made things worse, and the boat even started to rock more. So we started the ceremony, like I had music and everything, because I wanted to have a hand fasting, which is a pagan marriage as well as spiritual marriage.
That was going to be one of my questions, actually. I was going to ask about the whole ceremony, I can't even speak, ceremony and how it actually happens. But yeah, hand fasting. So I'll let you continue with that, Amanda, if you want to just explain what hand fasting is.
Yeah, well, a hand fasting is, you'll see it in Outlander or Braveheart. It was the way people got married before the Marriage Act in the 1800s, whereby a blacksmith could marry them, or just anybody that was considered, a respected member of society.
Quite common for a hand fasting in the pagan world, anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, my sister had a hand fasting for her wedding.
Yes, now you can still have a hand fasting nowadays, but obviously you do have to have the legal element of it as well. And there's certain stipulations, like the wording has to be in a certain way to deem it legal, and the certain people have to perform it. So, you know, a hand fasting in itself with a priest or a priestess doing it wouldn't be a legal marriage. You would have to have the registrar as well. So, I mean, that was kind of where we were at. Yeah. So obviously the priest who was officiating it, because he was a legal registrar, he could have done both, and that was the idea that was meant to happen. But as soon as we started the hand fasting, it was pretty obvious that was not going to be able to take place on the boat. There was just no way. You couldn't set up an altar or anything because everything was falling all over the place.
Yeah, you hard enough keeping your guests on board, let alone anything else.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I don't think I could go through with this. So was really having cold feet. So he talked to me and he was like, well, you know, you could have the hand fasting at another time, and, you know, but the legal bit, like, you've paid to charter a boat to go out to the Atlantic Ocean, you've gone through all this. If you don't do the legal bit here, you know, we can't do that on another day because, you know, it has to be done abroad.
Yeah.
So I went back out and I was like, right, okay, just get on with it. Just do the legal requirements. So we went out and he was just about to start again, and one of the guests threw up all over my dress.
Was you actually wearing a wedding dress, the whole shebang?
Yeah, the whole proper big white traditional.
So your beautiful dress got sick all over it?
Yeah, it was orange WKD.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Yeah.
Like there is four of us in the studio. You guys at home listening cannot see, but there's myself, there's Jo, there's Amanda, and we've got Kerry as well, and we're all looking at each other and we're all just going, oh no way.
Yeah.
Face palm moment. You know, that must be every woman's worst nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, I just literally just burst out in tears because, I mean, I planned this wedding for so long and I wanted everything to be perfect. I was like, I was devastated. So ran back into the cabin of the boat and I was like, I really, really can't do this. So I have, you know, the officiant, he was like, well, you know, we can't do this another day because, you know, you don't want to have to do all this, come out on the Atlantic Ocean again. I have the skipper of the boat there saying, look, you know, the weather's getting really, really bad. The wind's coming up. Like, we're not going to get back into port unless, you know, you get this over and done with, like, in the next 10 minutes. So then I've all the guests outside, you know, who, you know, came on this wedding. And then I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then I have Jack. Now, Jack had been
and at this point, this was just for the legal requirement, wasn't it? This wasn't even the hand fasting bit. This is just the legal requirement.
We'd abandoned the idea of the hand fasting at this point. So I'd already kind of given up on half of the wedding. And now the second, you know, the legal bit was, you know, kind of, you know.
The most important, I suppose.
So, I mean, Jack, when Jack was alive, he had been engaged and she had jilted him. So I'm here at the situation. I was like, I can't do this to him again. I can't.
So no pressure for you at all then, Amanda, no. You know?
Yeah. So I went back out and I was like, okay, just let's do it. Let's do it. Now, part of the legal requirements for marriage in the UK is verbal consent on both parties. So obviously I wasn't allowed to give verbal consent for Jack because that would be like not fair, because I mean, I could say, yes, he said yes, and he didn't. So we had to get an independent medium to channel Jack for, you know, to get his consent.
Yeah.
So literally we just did the exact same as what you would get in a registry office, and it was all over like in like 5 minutes. And it's just, honestly, it's kind of still a blur to me, you know, between the seasickness and the champagne and and the trauma I was going through. I was like, you know, it's just like just a bit of a blur, but we did it anyway. And as soon as it was
so you actually had to have another medium to speak on behalf of Jack.
Yes.
So stood there would have been was it a priest, did you say, or
yes, he was a pagan priest, yeah.
So a pagan priest, yourself, the medium speaking on behalf of Jack, and then all your guests obviously around you. So the layout as in a proper wedding, just without Jack, but a medium stood there speaking for him.
Yes. Now we had if you've seen any of the wedding pictures, you probably know that a portrait was used. People say it was a cutout of Johnny Depp. It wasn't, because very much in witchcraft, photographs of people contain their energy. So, I mean, absolutely no way would I have used a photograph of a physical person that was living. It was a fan art picture, and it was it was like somebody's impression of Jack Sparrow if he was dark skinned. So to me, it was the closest that I could get that looked like him. So this was just a focal point. That was nothing to do with the ceremony. There was nothing to do with his energy involved in the picture. The picture was just like as a focal point, because obviously there was no groom there. So, you know, it was nice to kind of have representation. But we did have
going back, Amanda, just going back to the medium, who actually chose the medium? Was it yourself that arranged for this other medium to come along? And did you know the medium if you did?
It was between me and Jack. Obviously, she was going to channel him, so, you know, he had to have an input into it. And we did speak to 2 or 3 mediums before we found one that we were all happy with. But yeah, I didn't know her before, though.
Jolene keeps moving the camera. I'm getting seasick now. I'm not even on your boat, Amanda.
No, I didn't know her before the ceremony. Well, I mean, I had met up with her 2 or 3 times before the ceremony, obviously, for Jack to communicate and stuff with her. But yeah, I mean,
but you didn't actually know her, so she's not like a friend or in your circle.
We became friends afterwards, but I didn't know her at the time. No.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, go back to the wedding then.
Yeah, I just want to ask a question. Sorry, I'm just going to jump in. You know, obviously, looking back through past pictures and things like that, you were obviously had a Holy Communion when you was around the age of what young girls usually have Holy Communion.
7, yeah.
How did your family react when you actually said to them that you wanted to have this wedding and have a pagan, you know, wedding, and you've kind of taken that route away from the religion of Catholicism into like a different route entirely, which is paganism, which, you know, kind of goes against the grain, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it wasn't my first marriage because I had done the whole Catholic marriage thing before. So, I'd kind of, you know, done my duty in that department, and obviously it hadn't worked out because, you know, of my orientation. I mean, I wasn't interested in the slightest. So, so I kind of done my duty in that regard. So they were aware that, you know, that hadn't worked out. Then they also knew that I was a witch, which, you know, that in itself, when they found that out, they weren't too happy about that to begin with. But they had, you know, this was several years later, they had kind of accepted that, you know, that I had gone down the pagan path, and, you know, they respected it. They didn't really approve of it, but they, you know, they accepted that's what I had done. So take it on to, moving on, saying, well, do you know what, now I'm marrying a spirit. My dad was, like, very, very much against it. He didn't believe in it at all, and he was not on board with it. My mother, initially not so, but she kind of came around to the idea because, you know, I was very close to my mother. I was an only child. So over time, I would have, like, introduced her to Jack and tried to get her to feel his energy. Can you feel him beside you? He's there now, sort of thing. And she had a couple of experiences where she'd felt him. So eventually she did come round, and she died in 2017, and she had actually totally, you know, believed in the relationship, so to speak, and accepted it by the time she died, which was really nice, you know, that she had. So yeah, I mean, to this day now, even my dad, it's just like, if I bring up the subject, he's like, oh, that's a load of nonsense, you know. So yeah, he still doesn't believe that anything really significant ever took place. But yeah, I mean, he's very old school. He's coming from a place, he doesn't really believe in any of those hauntings or anything like that, but yet he believes in God, you know, and he's religious in that sense, and he prays to saints, and, you know, so, you know, I've tried to explain to him, you know, well, what's the difference, like a saint or an angel or God? They're all spirit entities, so if you believe in them, you believe in a spirit. No, that's different. They're different, you know. They're not spirits. So, you know, when somebody is of an older age like that, and they're very set in their ways, you know, you can't really change.
No, yeah, exactly. You know? I mean, you can't, I totally get it.
But, so for Jack's energy, part of what you would learn in witchcraft is that you can put energy into objects. So Jack had offered way back before the wedding to put some of his energy into a candle, and that the candle would be used to place his ring on. So I guess the only thing that contained his energy at the wedding was this candle. So the candle was used to put his ring on. And then obviously my ring was put on my finger. So, yeah. So that's it. So we're legally married. We're heading back in horrendous weather conditions. I mean, we had a reception planned, but it took us so long to get back in. We were like 4 hours late for the reception. And we had more people invited to the reception that were allowed, than were on the boat, because there was only 21 or 2 people allowed on the boat. Yeah. So when we got back, most of the people had actually upped and left and gone home, because we were hours and hours late. Obviously, I had to go and try and clean the vomit off my dress before I went into the reception, and it was a complete disaster. Put it like that, absolute disaster. So, yeah, I was really, really upset. Yeah, it turned into a complete nightmare.
Every bride's nightmare, isn't it? Let's be realistic. I've never been married, but I can just imagine that I wouldn't appreciate that.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. So anyway, so we're married, and that's that. So so kind of just got on with it, and
so after the legal bit, you went back to your reception.
Yeah.
Yes, some people had left. Did you still carry on? Did you have a party? Enjoy yourself?
We had a bit of a party, but for the guests that were with us were all so sick. They didn't want to eat or drink or anything, because they were just dying from being on the boat. But their stomach was still really messed up. So yeah, it was a bit of a disaster, really. Yeah.
So moving on from that, so you settled into married life with Jack.
Yes. So yeah, we got on with things, and got over the upset over the day. Convinced him. He initially didn't really want to go ahead with hand fasting, because the actual wedding day had been such a disaster. He was like, I'm not, we're not doing this again, because literally I was a bit of a bridezilla, I guess, and he was like, no, you're not getting another wedding.
I was going to ask how I can't speak, I am so sorry, how a hand fasting would actually work when there's not a physical hand there to fast.
Yeah, well, obviously we had to work around that. So yeah, I mean, we agreed then eventually that we would have another hand fasting, but that we would keep it smaller and more intimate than the wedding. Of course, by the end of it, by the time it actually took place, it really didn't turn out to be small and intimate at all. It was just as big as the first one. But anyway, that was the agreement we made, that we'd have something small, because I wanted to kind of have the spiritual element to it. So. Yeah, so a hand fasting, obviously the hands are tied. Traditionally as well, blood is mixed. Blood of my blood. You've probably, if you watch Outlander, you've probably seen how Claire and Jamie get married. But yeah, so that's the traditional one where blood is mixed. People maybe not so much go for the blood now. But yeah, we were going to go the whole hog. We were going to have, the hand fasting and the exchange of energy, which are the exchange of blood. So. Yeah, so as I said, I mentioned this candle that contained part of his energy. So when we did the mixing of the blood, my blood was mixed into the wax of the candle. So that was the mixing of the energies. And as regards the hand fasting, my hands were tied around the candle. So literally my 2 hands were tied around the candle. So that's how we worked the hand fasting bit. So yeah, I mean, it really wasn't, that complicated actually. So, and the rest of it really went the same as, a hand. Well, there's lots of different types of hand fastings too, depending on your traditions. I mean, we very much went with the witchcraft, the Wiccan element and the... I'm on the phone, Venus.
Oh, bless.
We called in the elements and the gods and the goddesses, the gods that Jack would have worked with, and the goddesses that I work with, and so we had that, and so I mean we had the 2 weddings, and yeah, I was kind of happy then once the second one went really well. We had a lovely reception, and so it was great. So I got my dream wedding after all. So, however, in the background...
So you then settled in?
Yeah, so about 2 weeks after the legal marriage, after the first wedding, which was the 23rd of July 2016, I was a really healthy person, very healthy for my age, and very active and all that. I've never really had any health issues or anything. Never took antibiotics or anything like that. About 2 weeks after the wedding, I started to get all these weird health ailments. It started off with psoriasis on my hands. Next thing, I started to get abscesses, perianal abscesses, which are it's not like the abscess you get in your mouth. It's actually a chronic condition. So I got my first perianal abscess about a month after the wedding, and it's really, really hard to get rid of. It usually requires surgery, but I have a lot of allergies to anesthetics, so they won't do surgery on me unless it's a matter of life and death. So I ended up in hospital on IV antibiotics, and it kept recurring. I'd get rid of one, and then a couple of weeks later, I'd get another one, and they couldn't really figure out. I had an MRI scan. They couldn't figure out why I kept on getting these recurring abscesses. I went into early menopause. I got my period on my wedding day, actually, on the 23rd of July, on the bloody boat with no tampons or anything.
No.
I got blood on my dress as well as the vomit. So, and that's an exclusive. Haven't said that on air before.
We love an exclusive over at Parasearch Radio.
So yeah, that was the last period I got. I didn't get a period after that. And you may have read in a couple of the articles about my so-called pregnancy scare. It wasn't really a pregnancy scare. My period stopped 2 months after the wedding. Yes, and initially I was like, oh my God, this can't be. And, Jack says no, spirit can't actually get a physical person pregnant because, sperm is matter, so it's actually not possible.
According to the article that I read at the weekend, somebody's pregnant with Michael Jackson's baby, apparently, but that's another story. So swiftly moving back onto your story.
Right, okay. Well, kind of went a spirit can possess somebody while they're having sex with you, but, technically the baby will still be biologically the man who was possessed. Or you could go and get, artificially inseminated by donor, and, if you are married to a spirit, but biologically the baby is not going to be, the spirit. It is going to biologically be somebody else's, So there's no way that you can actually get pregnant from spirit. It's just not possible. So yeah, as I said, Jack was like, no, you're not pregnant. So I went to my doctor and I said, I haven't had a period in 2 months. And she's like, you're pregnant. And I was like, no.
Definitely not.
You must be pregnant. I was like, no, really, I'm not. So I ended up getting a blood test done, and it showed that I was in menopause, which was quite young because I was 44 at the time. So yeah, I was quite young to be in menopause. So So, of course, I started to get all the horrible symptoms that goes along with that. And let me tell you, they're not good.
Well, I can't say as I'm looking forward to that either, but,
No.
Needs must and all that.
With these recurring abscesses on antibiotics all the time, this horrible psoriasis just on one hand. Then I started to get on my legs, and I was literally went from being really healthy to just being a train wreck in a matter of about 2 or 3 months. Everything I seemed to touch was just a disaster. It was the worst run of luck I've ever had. Everything was just that could go wrong would go wrong, literally. Mm-hmm. So this all started with the bad wedding day. So, I'm here something's not right. The gut feeling here, the solar plexus is kicking in saying something's not right here. So obviously I know about spirit possession and attachments. I was a spiritual teacher, so I know about these things, and a lot of these things are symptoms of possession and and spiritual attachment. But of course, I was like, no, it can't be. Too many people have communicated with him. Somebody would have picked up that he was negative. But but I went back to these mentors, these people that I trusted, and I went back and I was like, look, all this shit is happening, could this be? Am I possessed? Is Jack a negative spirit, And I asked them straight up. I'm a very straight talking person. I was like, am I fucking possessed by a demon here? What's going on? And they all said, nah, Jack's lovely. We've communicated. Yeah, no, Jack's a lovely spirit. Not at all. No. Shit happens. It's life. You can't blame everything on the spiritual. So I was like, well, yeah, because actually I'm quite a logical person, even though people would think somebody who's married to a 300-year-old pirate ghost is not a logical person. But, I actually am quite logical.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that one at all. I said that earlier. A lot of people are going to think that you are batshit crazy, pardon the language, but, a lot of people are going to believe that.
The fairies, as they say here.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I was like, So then I was like, yeah, you know what, like, shit happens, I'm just having a bad run, one thing led to another. I've been on antibiotics, immune system's bad, probably picking up this and that, So I just got on with things, and this continued on. This run of bad luck continued on. My mother died in 2017. Then I guess, I didn't really, link this to Jack at all, because I had been told, definitely it's not Jack. And I loved this man. He was always respectful, loving, he was my husband. So, I didn't want to even consider the possibility it was anything to do with him. So fast forward on then to December 2017. And I rescue dogs, and I had this rescue dog called Toby, and he was my familiar. If you know about witchcraft, you'll know witches have familiars. So Toby was my familiar. We were incredibly connected. Toby had gone blind when he was 13, and he was now 17. So, he was very, very intuitive. So Toby became really ill, and he died on the 18th of December 2017, and that literally broke my heart because I loved him so much. And Jack and I had talked about it because we knew his time was coming, and I had tried to cross him over. He was almost unconscious, for about 3 days before he died. And on the Friday, he died on the Monday. On the Friday, I knew that, he was in and out of his body. So his spirit was leaving, and then it was still attached and it was coming back. And he didn't want to leave his body, even though it was his time. So I meditated with him, and I had done healing with him a lot anyway. And I tried to get him to cross over. And Jack and I had this agreement that Jack would look after him, and then when it was my time to pass, that, we'd all be together. So I tried to get Toby to go to him to cross over, and Toby would not go. When he saw Jack, he just went completely vicious, aggressive. He was going for him, and he was like, really, like, he hated him. And this really upset me because I was like... So
had Toby been like that with Jack previous, or was this just...
No, but Toby, as I said, Toby was very elderly. So once I got to meet Jack, Toby was already blind and somewhat suffering with dementia. So I don't really think in his physical body, Toby would have really known Jack. And this is what Jack said to me. He said he won't come to me because he's never seen me. Sure, he was blind when you got with me, so he just doesn't know me. But that didn't make sense because he just known his energy. But certainly when we were talking about Toby's astral body as opposed to his physical body, because, this is what I was dealing with, was Toby's astral body was not blind. So from the energy, Toby should have... wanted to go to him. And they say animals know people's energy, and they can tell the difference between somebody who's good and bad. So this was really this really made me suspicious when
alarm bells then started ringing for you.
Yeah, this was a massive red flag for me. So anyway, Toby did pass some days later, and Toby, I did go in and try and find Toby, but he would not go to Jack. He did not go near Jack. So Jack and I had a massive fight. A massive fight over this because, his job, he couldn't do much for me in the physical, but, he was in the spiritual, and his job to me was to look after my precious baby who had just passed, and he didn't do it. So we had a wicked row over it, and I told him it was over and everything. I was like, I can't believe that you, and he was like, but he wouldn't come to me. I was like, but yeah, how can it be that bad that you couldn't go over, you couldn't try and, work with him? So he was like, oh, he's reincarnated. And I was like, already? And he was like, yeah, he's reincarnated. And this just didn't sit with me that I know animals and babies do kind of reincarnate quicker because they don't have, an awful lot to get through, to delve through from that life. But I was still like, this is really quick. This is too quick. He's not reincarnated that quick. But Jack was convinced me always because he'd never seen me in the physical, and it's because, he's reincarnated. And he convinced me that this was the reason why Toby didn't want to go to him. And even though it didn't really sit right with me again, I ignored that gut feeling. And I was like, I believe you. But ever from that point, that little real serious seed of doubt was sitting in my head. Something just never sat right with me after that. My story went viral this day last year. So, Jack and I weren't even talking when the story went viral.
So a story about your relationship with Jack goes viral as you're not even talking.
Yeah, we weren't even talking. So at this point, yeah, we were still working through the whole Toby situation. So then, you know what, I was like, right, okay, you know, the story had gone viral. I still loved him. You know, he'd given me a couple of explanations that I could take. So I was like, let's work on things. Okay, you know, I'm not going to end up with you. So we began talking again, and we began working on a relationship. But it was gradually building it up because, you know, as I did say, you know, I do consider myself on the asexual spectrum. So, you know, for me to just jump back in there and, you know, say, yeah, everything's all right, and suddenly, you know, want it to be intimate with them again, it doesn't really work like that with me. I'm, you know, the ice queen, so to speak, you know, and I have been called that many times. So, you know, once something happens, it takes me quite a while to kind of open up again. So we were working on things. So in May, obviously lots of stuff happened in between, but I'm not going to go with every single mundane daily life thing. But yeah, so the next major thing that happened was in May. I had not gotten abscess in several months, so I thought I was more or less cured from it. But Jack and I resumed our sexual relationship in May. And literally 2 days after we had sex, I got another abscess. But this time, the abscess didn't respond to antibiotics, and it grew to 12 centimeters. And I ended up with sepsis, and I almost died. I had to have emergency surgery, and I was really, really ill. So yeah, after I came out of surgery, I had to take my wedding ring off for my surgery, and as I said, I was really, really ill. So after I came back from theatre and all that, realised, you know, how serious this condition was. I went to put my wedding ring back on, and like something just said to me, don't. And I know that was like my spiritual team, you know, and it was just like, don't put the wedding ring back on. And I just tried to put it back on, and I could not put it back on. So I put it back in the envelope, put it into my handbag, and I was just this massive gut feeling. I was like, this is to do with your relationship, Amanda. Seriously, you know, your spiritual team, how long are you going to ignore your gut feeling? So I was very ill after the surgery, so I had plenty of time to think and reflect, and I started making notes of all the abscesses.
What was Jack around you at this point? You know, while you was in hospital and really poorly, was Jack's energy around you at that point, or was you free of Jack?
It was around me, but after I came out from theatre, I had told him, look, I need a break because I just, you know, I'm just not happy with the situation. So I said, I'm going to, if you're a medium, you know that you open yourself up to communication and you can close yourself down. Obviously, I have remained open most of the time because I wanted to be able to, you know, converse and communicate with my husband as often as could be, but I shut down and I cut off communication. I said, not just you, Jack, like, you know, I don't want any spirit communication. So I completely closed off. And I was like,
you needed to focus on yourself.
Yeah, I needed to heal. At this time, there was also the possibility I had been doing a lot of spiritual teaching and spiritual work with people. And I was like, maybe that's what's draining my energy. So I wasn't sure it was Jack, but there was like massive red flags here. So then when I sat down and started working out all the times that I had abscesses, I realized that every single time that I'd gotten an abscess was directly after I'd had sex with Jack.
All right.
The 7
communication every time though.
The 6 and 7 month period that I hadn't had sex with Jack, which would have been like, because Toby was ill for a few weeks before he died, so we hadn't had sex from early November right through to the end of April, and I didn't have one abscess in that period of time. So I mean, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty compelling evidence. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so I'm like, what do I do with this now? I need confirmation that this is right, you know, because I mean, I'm about to you know, to break up with somebody that I love. I'm about to, you know, I've gone public and how great this is and everything, to be in a relationship with a spirit, and now I'm discovering like that it's almost nearly killed me. Yes. So I had to take some serious time to heal, to reflect, and to really decide what I was going to do. So yeah, so it took several months. I mean, it wasn't something that I did on a whim, you know. I spent a lot of time doing meditation, trying to work with my own spiritual team, and just really making sure that Jack was to blame. I was very much moving. Obviously, I was dealing with the surgery. It caused some complications, and they had damaged my bowel, my sphincter muscle, which left me with some incontinence. They'd also created a fistula, which is a tunnel like between the external opening and the internal opening of your bowel, which is something that apparently can't be healed and can't be cured because the internal opening never heals over. So you're constantly getting like fecal matter into this tunnel, causing more and more infections and abscesses. So it's a chronic disease. It's called perianal fistula disease. So I was dealing with having the long-term prospect of having this condition for the rest of my life, plus, the whole situation that potentially, my marriage was going to have to end. So it wasn't a good period of time at all for me.
I've just got a question that's just come up in the chat room. Well, there's a couple actually. So before we move on, Amanda, I'll just ask you these. So Nathan in the chat room wants to know, is really sorry if this has already been asked or answered, but was there any language barriers between you and Jack?
No. Jack would have spoken very fluent English when he was alive anyway. So, I'm sure, from mediumship anyway, well, depending on who you're communicating with, sometimes Spirit will, if there is a language problem, they will show you images and, they'll communicate through thought forms anyway. But Jack was a fluent English speaker, so no, it wasn't.
And Paul wants to know, how can your illnesses be physical evidence if he doesn't actually touch you sexually in the physical being?
Right, well, I guess we're going to get to that. That's kind of the next part, I guess.
Okay, great.
So yeah, it's a very valid question, because obviously, I do know a lot about spirit attachments and all that working, with witchcraft and stuff like that. So yeah, how it basically works. I mean, I'm still not even 100% how it works, but I do know that if you become possessed or you have a spirit attachment, you can become physically ill. It's kind of to do with your energy being drained, and, anybody that knows about holistic health knows that it's all about balance. So, if your etheric body or your aura or your energy is constantly being drained, if it's constantly being clouded and muddied, that is going to have a physical effect on your physical body. I guess, the perianal abscesses, I mean, it's not caused by VD. It's not an STD or anything like that. It is a chronic condition. When a spirit energy is making you ill, it's usually a weak point that will, that'll suffer. So, for example, if it was somebody who had a heart condition, it may be their heart that would suffer. Fibromyalgia is a big one for spirit attachment as well, because it's non-specific and can affect different parts of your body. Menopause, your period stopping, very, very common in women. Perianal fistula disease, not so. Having said that, one of the spiritual mentors that I had mentioned that had sex with spirits suffers with exactly the same thing, which is also kind of interesting. So for me, I feel that the reason why it affected me in that way was not necessarily to do with the sex. I reckon that when we had sex, there was a stronger connection and he was drawing more energy at those times. Which is kind of understandable because even if it's two physical people having sex, there's an energy exchange. And I reckon that, that I've always kind of had somewhat inflammatory bowel disease. So that was a weak spot and it kind of affected me in that area. Whether or not it was to do with the sex or whether it was more to do with the energy exchange during sex, I still actually don't know that. The fact that it was in that area is kind of, would lead you to believe that maybe, was to do with the sex, but, it could also be to do with the fact that was just where my weak area was, But yeah, spirit attachments can make you physically ill. And I mean, I knew that, but, I did not really realize how ill until I was in that situation myself. Eventually after several months, I won't go into too much details about it, but I would work with certain gods and goddesses, and it was actually a deity, not actually my deity. It was a deity of one of my friends. She had asked her deity to help me because she could see what was going on with me. And he actually came to me in one of my trances or journeys, and he showed me that Jack knew what he was doing and that Jack was taking my energy without permission. Then I had, I journeyed a bit more about it on 2 other occasions, and it became very, very clear from my own spiritual team that exactly what was happening, that yes, this spirit attachment was making me ill, and that he knew what he was doing. So I confronted, I hadn't communicated with him in a long time, months. So I opened up and I called him in and I communicated with him. And when I...
Sorry, can I just interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I need to jump in at
Sure.
this point.
Sure.
Right, you work very closely with your spirit team, being as you are part of the Wicca faith. Why would they allow you to have started a relationship with something that was going to drain your energy in this way and cause you this much physical discomfort and problems, and then only at this point turn around and say, yeah, it is him, he's doing this? Why would they allow this to go on for that long? Your spirit team are there for you. So why... I'm struggling.
There
with
was
that
a number of reasons, because I obviously asked I asked those questions myself. Well, first of all, I had mentioned about the spell that I had cast to attract a soulmate. So therefore that was allowing a spirit to come in. But I guess, the bottom line is that your spiritual team or your spiritual protection won't work against your own stupidity. So they had given me loads and loads of signs that this wasn't right, through my gut feeling, through things that had happened, and through one other person. There was only one person in the whole of that 2-year period that had told me that what I was doing was dangerous. He was a shaman, and he had said, look, what you're doing is dangerous. You don't know what you're messing with. So they had warned me. They had given me loads and loads of warnings. Toby had warned me, but I chose to ignore all of the warnings. So God, deities, guides, they won't protect you from your own stupidity. So if they give you signs and they clearly show you what you're doing is wrong, and you still plow on ahead, then you've got free will. So it's on your own head, and that's really what happened. And it was only when I came to them, which was around September, and said, look guys, I'm in a terrible mess here. My life is in shit. I need to know if this is Jack or not. I need you to help me. And then when I did call them in, they did help.
Fair point. Thank you for answering. Sorry, carry on.
I did. Kerry is more spiritually aware than definitely myself. I mean, Jo specialises in paranormal investigation and mediumship. I'm paranormal investigation. Kerry's paranormal investigation and spiritual. I guess you're quite spiritual too, though, Jo, with being a medium. So they're going to ask you questions that I wouldn't even dream of asking Amanda.
I mean, when people talk about spiritual, or they talk about pagan, or they talk about mediumship, they don't realise that there are so many different paths, and there's so many belief systems, and there's so many different ways of doing things, and some of them interlap and they overlap, and people don't realise that there's so many different areas here. Like, people assume like if you're a medium, then you're a witch, or if you're a witch, then you're definitely a medium, and they're not. They're all different things, and they're all different stuff that you learn.
I think it's obviously when you're a medium, you tend to get that, so you're a witch, like you've just said. But my mother practices the Wicca, and my sisters like paganism and things like that. My parents were very, very they weren't religious as they were growing up. I obviously got the gift when I was young, but my mum was very supportive, so she kind of took me down the medium route because that was my natural ability, whereas my mother is more of a natural witch, and my sister's kind of taken that turn as well.
Whereas I am very much more drawn towards the witchcraft end of things. Yeah. Mediumship has never felt natural to me. Yes, I can do it, but it doesn't feel like it's where I should be. It's not my path.
I'm going to ask something now, because I know obviously religion, when people change religions and things like that, some people find it really difficult. Now, obviously, we mentioned earlier about you doing your Holy Communion and that sort of thing when you were of a young age. Now, was that kind of your parents kind of pushing you into that route, or is it kind of is you now being, you know, part of the Wicca, part of the paganism? Is that you just rebelling against what your parents actually wanted of you?
Well, this is a very, very interesting thing, actually, and my autobiography is coming out around Valentine's Day, and I do go quite a lot of depth into my Catholic upbringing and Catholic.
Shit.
Religion was a massive part of growing up in Ireland, you know, back in the 70s and 80s. I mean, it was a massive part of it. And there was a whole thing going on in Ireland at the time about moving statues and apparitions of Mary, of Our Lady, right? This was huge. So I was really interested in all of this kind of supernatural kind of thing, but I mean, you weren't exposed to Wicca or you know, the paranormal. So I mean, the most I knew was like, oh, the Virgin Mary's appearing. So when I was like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, around that age group, I didn't want to go to a holiday park. Like when I went on holiday, I wanted to go to like the places where the Virgin Mary appeared because I wanted to see an apparition. In fact, I had a friend, and me and her used to go down to this area of wasteland, and we used to pray the rosary like for hours every day and sit there and hope that like the Virgin Mary would appear to us, you know, because I was like really fascinated by this. And I used to pick up pieces of glass off the ground and hold them up to the sun and imagine they had special powers, which is very like what crystals, you know, are. But like I wouldn't have ever known anything about, you know, crystals or paganism or even, you know, anything to do with that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, ghosts and myths and the banshee and stuff like that, yes, but you know, not that it was like a path or a religion you could follow. So I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously I was spiritually aware back then. I remember when I was about 4 or 5, the film A Night to Remember, which is the really ancient version of Titanic, was on the TV. And I was telling my mother what was going to happen before it happened in the film. And like, I wouldn't have had any idea what the Titanic was. I mean, I was very, very young. And I know now, I mean, I live in Belfast now where the Titanic was built. And when I came to Belfast first, I went to live in East Belfast. And obviously you don't know that much about Belfast, but you know, there's the Catholic and Protestant areas in Belfast. And East Belfast is the Unionist area, and West Belfast, the Catholic area. So for me, with my accent from Southern Ireland, to move into East Belfast, everybody would be like, what? With your accent. And now my dad is British, like, so, you know, I do have a link kind of there, you know, but, you know, with my accent and stuff, you know, it was an odd choice. But when I went to East Belfast, I knew my way around. Like, I knew everywhere. I felt so at home there. And it's very close to Harland and Wolff. And I discovered afterwards I don't know if it was my actual last past life, but in my past life, I was a carpenter on the Titanic. I worked in Harland and Wolff shipyard, and that's why I felt such a massive connection with East Belfast. So I think it may have been my last past life.
Well, they've got the Titanic dry dock in Belfast, haven't they, where the Titanic was actually built?
I can see it from my window if I look.
Yeah. Well, I've done an investigation there, so.
Oh right, okay, awesome. So yeah, I mean, yeah. So I mean, I was spiritually aware from a very young age. I just didn't know what it was. Then obviously as I got older and kind of got into my teenage years, I mean, I've seen very much firsthand the corruption of the Catholic Church and the abuse and that was going on. And, you know, then I was like, that this religion is all a pile of crap. I don't want nothing to do with it. And I turned very, very anti-religion. And that's kind of where I kind of went more down, you know, the atheist or agnostic route, you know, because, you know, it was really the Catholic Church, I guess, that turned off.
Can I just swiftly move us back onto Jack?
Mm-hmm.
I'm really sorry, right, but something really strange has just happened to Jo and Kerry, who are both in this call. Now, Kerry started the call, patched me in, patched Jo in, and then I called you, Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
And both Kerry and Jo had just been removed from this chat.
Oh, okay.
And there's no way that A, they should have been, and B, I didn't do it. And I'm sure if you remove somebody from a chat while you're on a Skype call, it comes up telling you who's removed them. So both of them have just been removed. And I'm now logically trying to work out how. So Is Jack still
I
around
wouldn't
you?
actually know how to do it. No, Jack isn't around. Jack has been moved on since the 20th of December, so he is not around. But having said that, I mean, spirit can do things like that. So, well, I mean,
yeah.
Jack was very, very capable of doing physical mediumship. We ran seances where he did stuff. He messed with electronics. We did get a couple of paranormal investigators in who found like a lot of intelligent activity with the EMF, and they picked up some thermal image of energy behind me and stuff as well. So yeah, I mean, he was really good. So spirit can very much manipulate with electronics, very much so, but it's not Jack because he has been moved on.
So how did things end with you and Jack?
So how things ended was pretty much, when I got confirmation from my deities that this was what was happening, I confronted him, and then I seen a very, very other side to him, a very nasty side that I had not seen before. He got very angry, and he told me that if I tried to get rid of him, that he would kill me first. So I was right, okay. Initially, I was quite upset and scared.
Well, at least he's honest.
Yeah, at least he's honest. And then I started to think, and I was like, well, do you know what? Like, he's a pirate. Why am I actually surprised here? What he did was steal when he was alive, kill people. And now I'm, like, surprised that he stole from me and threatened to kill me. Like, duh. Like, it's kind of obvious. And then he told me that he had connected with 2 other people before me. And both of them, I know, kind of didn't have... Hello, are you still there?
Yeah, still here.
Yeah, my phone's after making a funny noise there as well. I thought maybe I'd been removed from the conversation.
No.
But, so yeah, he, the other 2 people had come to kind of sticky ends as well. And again, I had not blamed him for that before, but then when he threatened me, I was like, right, one of them had died from cancer in her 40s. And I was like, right, you know what? This isn't going to be me, because I'm going to stand up to you and I'm going to make sure you don't mess with anybody else again. So, you're not going to kill me. So at this point, obviously, I called in, my spiritual team. I said, I know I have an attachment and I know it can't be removed that easily, but, I want protection from him. I don't want him to take any more of my energy. And I want you guys, to step in here now. And I obviously apologized for ignoring all the times that, that I had ignored. And I was like, I really need your help. So from that point, things started to very gradually improve. My health had a very, very small improvement, but not a major improvement. So he was continuously hanging around. I mean, I could feel his energy, even though he wasn't really connected to me, he was around and he just wasn't going. So I was like, I'm going to have to get an exorcism or soul extraction here because, I'm just not able to do this myself. So, yes, I had to get somebody in, or a group of people in to do a soul extraction. And that was done on the 20th of December. And it ended up not being as difficult as I can't talk too much about it because I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about it. But it wasn't actually as traumatic as I thought it would be. We did end up talking, me and Jack, and he did eventually, with a little bit of we'll say encouragement might be a little bit too light of a word, but yeah, with a little bit
a little bit of force.
Yes, he did move on. And interesting enough, I mean, I'm a believer, obviously I'm a believer, but I have a chronic condition, and you obviously don't know me, the listeners don't know me, they don't know from June to the 20th of December how terrible my life was. Like every single day, I mean, I would cry before I had to go to the toilet. I was constantly getting infections, constantly having to get this site opened and drained. I mean, absolutely
is that from the PA?
Yeah, from the perianal abscess, yeah. Well, it's a fistula. So, yeah, I mean, my life was terrible. I had no remission. I was on flare-up the whole time. The 20th of December, it had started to improve somewhat, a little bit. From once I had kind of said, that's it, it's definitely over. But after I had the soul extraction, my fistula has gone into remission. and it is 7 weeks since I've had a flare-up. And I'm touching wood because I'm nearly afraid to say it, because every day I get up and I'm afraid it's going to flare up again. But it has not flared up in 7 weeks, and that is unbelievable.
And how long has Jack been gone?
The 20th of December, he left. But the 10th of December was the time that I asked my spiritual team to come in and make sure that he didn't harm me anymore. So it kind of correlates with the actual time, because it was just the end of November was the last drainage that I had, and then early December, then I cut him off, and then 20th of December I had the soul extraction. The psoriasis on my hand has completely disappeared, and on Christmas Day I got my period.
So how does that work with the menopause then? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm only 35. I have not been through the menopause yet. Yes, I know stuff, but with not going through the menopause, obviously, I don't feel that I'm able to comment on it as such. So if you was going through the menopause, how does that work with your periods? Because surely...
Well, basically, I mean, you can't have an odd period of that when you're going through menopause. And I had some, like, spotting and stuff, but I hadn't had a full period. So I had a full period on Christmas Day, and obviously that means that my estrogen levels have normalized, and I haven't had any menopause symptoms since. So, I mean, it's not a month yet, so let's see if I get another one this month.
Well, but, by all means, keep me updated with this, Amanda, because I want to follow this up.
As I said, the psoriasis, I had tried every cream you can imagine, and I could not get the psoriasis to heal up. Within 3 days of getting the soul extraction, the psoriasis completely disappeared. Now, as regards to
psoriasis doesn't just disappear either, because the only reason I'm pretty knowledgeable on medical conditions, and plus my son has got had severe eczema, which is very similar to psoriasis.
Yes, it is
slightly different, and affects the body differently and different areas, but the be all and end all is exactly the same when it comes to skin conditions such as psoriasis and eczema. Now, my son was that severe, he had to be bandaged from head to toe when he was a newborn baby, because his skin would just peel off because his eczema was that bad.
Terrible.
Now, I know for a fact that cannot just clear up in a matter of days.
No, I mean, I tried every cream. I mean, I'd had every cream from the doctor, and I tried all the, aloe vera. I tried Manuka honey. I mean, because I'm quite well up on my herbal stuff, and I tried everything, and I couldn't get rid of it. And, like, within 3 days,
Did you see a specialist for that?
No.
So your doctor never referred you to a specialist?
No. Just gave me different creams. Betten and Fate, I think, was one of them. And
see, now that sort of that ruins it a bit for me. Now, if you'd have sent you to a specialist and you'd have had skin scrapes to find the perfect cream, etc., to help heal, then I'd have been so much.
Well, the thing about it is this fistula. Now, a fistula cannot heal without surgical intervention. It can't. A medical professional will tell you a fistula cannot heal without medical intervention.
Well, fistulas can be actually caused through operations anyway.
Yes, well, that's how I got the fistula, was from the operation, from the abscess. That's how I got the fistula. So, I mean, I had an MRI scan in November, and it did show the fistula and the tract and everything else. And I was down to have surgery for the 28th of January of this month to get a permanent drain put in. It's gone into remission. I haven't had any issues with it for 7 weeks. So I'm obviously going to, touch wood, if it stays this way, I'm obviously going to leave it another few weeks. And at that point,
massively really hope that, you have
no
on the
idea.
mend.
I mean,
but just
I'm
going
get
back,
another MRI scan if it continues to be in remission, and I'm definitely going to get another MRI before I go for surgery, because at this point, I wouldn't go for surgery at the minute.
Well,
so, if the MRI shows up that the fistula is gone, then then that is solid proof, because a fistula
doesn't just disappear at all. It's impossible for that to disappear.
At the minute, I'm just so relieved that it's in remission. Do you know what I mean? I'm just so pleased because
I can imagine,
I've had 7 good weeks, and that's been unbelievable. I just don't know myself, because between June and December, I was so ill every single day. So,
going back to your PA though, Amanda. And I'm really going back to your PA, and I'm really, really Is that your kids, Amanda?
It's one of them, yes.
Can they actually hear what we're saying? Because I don't particularly want to wear my next question.
Yes, we can. Phoenix, can you go down? Because I'm doing a radio interview, and you're out, and everybody can hear you talking on the radio.
Hi, Phoenix. You're live on Parasearch Radio. Say good evening for me.
It is in the black handle that's on top of the black shelves in the sitting room. Okay.
Oh, bless him. We love it. We love it when a kid pops up on Parasearch. So
poked a while to TV out. Yes, and I'll put it in a minute. Okay, now I'm nearly done.
I'm so sorry. I know we're going on for hours. I'm really sorry.
I know, but it's such a massive area,
Exactly, and it's so fascinating.
And be here till tomorrow morning.
I wouldn't have a problem with that, to be honest, Amanda. But my next question for you is going back to your PA, and I'm really, really sorry to throw this out there, and I'm sorry to ask you this, and I'm sorry that it's live on air and people at home are going to care. But how do we know the answers unless we ask the questions? Well, if you don't want to answer, I told you at the start.
I was so embarrassed about it when I started getting them first, but now I'm, why should I?
Worse things have happened, haven't there? Exactly, worse things have happened. So PAs, they can be caused through anal sex. And can be caused through STDs, amongst other things. How do you know that Jack didn't actually pass like an STD onto you?
Well, I don't. We didn't have anal sex, but I don't. But I don't see how that could really work, because
there's no physical body.
It's biological, And I still don't really know exactly how his energy gave me the abscesses as such. And in fact, as I said, I know another woman who has spiritual sex, and she suffers with the exact same perianal abscesses. So, whether or not there is a link to the spiritual sex, or whether it is just literally, to do with, the energy being drained, and the fact that, that I had some irritable bowel or whatever, that was a weak area, that I don't know. But, it definitely, even if the fistula isn't gone, because the fistula was created by the surgery, the improvement that I've had, since he's been gone, definitely his attachment was contributing to the illness. There's no doubt.
So are you technically still classed as married to Jack?
Well, what we have, we did discuss it, and I obviously discussed it with, legal people, and I discussed it with the shamans who did the soul extraction, and I talked to Jack about it when the surgery was being done. Divorce would be, people say, when I was doing my interviews, people would say to me, well, how do you get divorced? And at that point, I do believe I've been quoted in interviews as saying, well, that's never going to happen, and I don't know. And
which is exactly why I'm asking.
Of getting the divorce, I was like, well, I don't know, because to get a divorce, you have to go in front of a judge, and I can't see any judge accepting a medium speaking on behalf of one of the parties. I just can't see that happening.
Yeah.
So that was going to be an issue. So after getting some legal advice, we were going to go down the road of annulment, because I did enter the marriage under deception, because I wasn't warned that there was dangers. Everybody told me it was completely safe. And obviously Jack was deceitful in his reasons for marrying me, because, he technically was, taking my energy. He had an ulterior motive. So is that what you believe?
Is that what you believe that his ulterior motive was then, just for your energy, so to speak?
Yeah, what I've kind of discovered, well, I kind of knew it, but I'm very clear in it now, is that, just like we're born and we die, there's a cycle of life. And when we pass, there's also a cycle. And, you know, the soul goes through the period of readjustment, and then it moves on. And some move up to upper astral realms and don't reincarnate because they've reached a level of enlightenment where they can avoid the circle of reincarnation. However, earthbound spirits who have not reached that level of awakening or a level of awareness or whatever you want to call it, and who are drawn back into the cycle of reincarnation, for them to be able to avoid that for a prolonged period like 300 years is abnormal. And to do that, they want to be physical. They want to experience the physical life. So therefore, the only way they can do that is like possession or attachment, because, you know, if they don't have that energy to draw from, they're going to be drawn back into that whole reincarnation. They can't experience physical life because, you know, their energy, they can't experience what it's like to have a drink. They can't experience what it's like to have sex. You know, they can't experience any of the pleasurable things of life that they had unless they have an attachment to somebody. So that's why Jack didn't want to give up his physical life. He was very clear on that, but he wanted to still remain physical. He wanted to live a physical life, but he couldn't because he didn't have a body. So the only way he could do it was, you know, by attaching to somebody else. And as I said, I wasn't the first person. There was two before me.
Yeah, you see that I mean, how long before you was these other two?
One of them would have been about 20 years, maybe. The other one more recently would have been within the last 10 years that I know of. But I mean, he's been around for quite a long time, so I'm sure there were more before that. But those are the only two that I know of. But I'm sure that he was feeding off other people, you know. So yeah, I mean, you know, but channeling or any kind of, I mean, there's certain spiritual paths. You talk about voodoo and certain dark arts. You know, there's a contract there. Spirits will enter the bodies of other people to perform magical work. They, you know, even in mediumship, channeling is a form of possession. But the whole thing is that, you know, the spirit comes in and the spirit leaves and it goes. But in the case of possession, or in the case of, you know, marrying a spirit like I did, then they just don't leave. And that's what happened, you know, and then that's when it becomes unhealthy.
So have you ever previously, before Jack, had spectrophilia before, or was Jack the first?
Jack was the first, yeah.
And would you ever do it again? So
no.
If you've got another spirit entering your energy, would you allow it? Would you?
No, I have promised myself, and I promised my deities that never ever again. In fact, I don't ever even want to do mediumship again. I don't want to connect with any earthbound spirits. I was going to give everything up, including my witchcraft and my spiritual work, after the soul extraction, but my main goddess, Hecate, has, you know, come into me on a couple of occasions and more or less don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So don't give up your spirituality, don't give up your path, but stick to what your path is meant to be, and that's witchcraft. So that's what I'll be sticking to. I'll be working with my deities and my spiritual team, and I will tutor select people, but yeah, I'm not going to ever, you know, engage in connecting or channeling earthbound spirits ever again. No. I've learned.
So this whole episode with Jack has completely changed your outlook, if you will.
Oh, absolutely. I just would not. And because my sense of discernment on it was so off, like, I wouldn't trust myself again, you know, because, I mean, you know, in
all fairness though, Amanda, what's the difference between, now I'm going to sound batshit crazy, but what is the difference between two physical beings that, I mean, we've all been led astray somewhere down the line, you know, everybody on this planet has possibly been hurt, lied to, deceived. So, you know, what is the difference there? You know, does that mean that you're going to give up on searching for a relationship full stop?
Well, like I said, I am asexual, so like a relationship is not like that massive big of a deal to me anyway. I mean, if I met somebody who was, you know, cool with being asexual and, you know, that I had a connection with possibly, but I really can't see it happening. You know, I can't see myself being in another relationship. That's just being honest with you. I think, you know, I've kind of had my fill there. I think I'll stick to just being an old dog lady. But as regards the whole thing, and yeah, you've made a good point about physical relationships. Yes, we've all been hurt and we've all been deceived. But the thing about it is, you know, it's more obvious, I think, in a physical relationship. And
I don't know about that, Amanda.
And in a way, maybe it's easier to get rid of them because you can just get a barring order. You can ring the police. But like, if you've got a spirit attachment, who do you ring? You know, it's not as easy. And, you know, it scared me how.
Well, it goes to the Vatican, doesn't it? Really, you know, where else can you go?
It's really difficult as well, you know, to get rid of spirit attachments, like really difficult if they don't want to leave. And it makes it more complicated, obviously, when you get into contract with one, because I did mention about, you know, spirit embodiment, and, you know, it's very common in shamanism and stuff like that. You know, I mean, there are contracts drawn up with spirits, you know, that they will do certain things for you and you allow them to do certain things. So when you've made a contract with the spirit, then you are technically breaking the contract. And, you know, spirits like Jack, he was like, well, you know, you're not going to break the contract because you've made it. You know, I made a blood contract with him. It's not that easy to get out of that, you know.
Can I ask what was actually in your contract?
It was just about our marriage, you know, that I, you know, would be faithful to him and that I wouldn't be with anybody else and that I would work with him. He took the place of my main guide. He asked that he would step in front of the rest of my spiritual guides.
So he basically took over your main spiritual guide. So he pushed everybody else to one side and he took over, took your power, took your energy, took everything.
Yeah, pretty much. And, you know, I agreed that I would like let him be my main spiritual guide. And, you know, he wanted me obviously very much to push his agenda and stuff, you know, and to speak publicly and do lives and teach what he wanted people to know, you know. So, yeah, he very much took over from even my deities, who was Hecate, you know, and I've worked with her since I started off on the Wiccan path. And, I mean, he even took over from her, you know, and yeah, I mean, I'm lucky that she did actually step in to help, because, I mean, it was a huge disrespect to her too, that, you know, that I actually took an earthbound spirit's word and you know, governance over her. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I fucked up big time.
Bless you.
Yeah. But it was some experience, like.
I wouldn't beat yourself up too much. A lot of people working in this way have fallen foul in one way or another. Yours was very public.
When I announced about the breakup, I said people really do need to be so careful, because you don't know. I mean, people think it's a joke and people think it's a laugh, and you know, you just, like, it's really dangerous. You do have to be very, very careful what you get mixed up in.
I totally agree. Yeah. I totally agree. And the difference is, you've done it publicly, you've put it out there, it got hit all over the media, and as, you know, as we found out from the girls, things get changed and twisted.
Yeah, we said this right at the very beginning, you know, before we went live. We did say, you know, we're having, because I'd never been in media before, and obviously now I have, so now I know how that can portray you.
And it certainly didn't give the background and the knowledge base that you actually have in regards to your spirituality and your Wicca. So thank you for being very open about that side of things. And you're dead right. The only difference is you've done it on a public forum. People do this on a personal level. And it is very hard to get out of a spiritual contract when you've made one. So
you know,
I wish you all the best, because I know how difficult that is.
I'm really blessed too that you know, that I did realise and that I did get out of it, because it doesn't bear thinking if I had continued on and not, you know, and listened to even other people and continued on down the road with this relationship, it probably would have ended up with me dying prematurely. Like, well, not even funny about that, you know.
As you said earlier, you know, that had happened to somebody else that Jack had been with, if you will. So yeah, I mean, Amanda, honestly, I cannot thank you enough for coming on tonight. You have been an absolute star.
Well, thank you. And as I said, all I can kind of hope for now is like I will go for another MRI scan if I continue to be in remission for another few weeks or whatever. And as I said, I fingers crossed. I mean, if the fistula is gone on the MRI, well then it is a miracle. Like,
well, exactly. Especially if the fistula is gone, that really is a miracle because they don't just disappear.
No, they can't. So, but I mean, as I said, we're kind of, we're jumping the gun here, and I don't want to kind of jinx myself either, because I'm enjoying not being in pain every day. So,
well, enjoy it while you can, definitely.
Yeah.
But we're running on to like nearly 2 hours on the radio now.
Really?
So so I think we will end it there. But
yes.
Amanda, thank you so much from all of us here at Parasearch Radio.
Can I just say, I'm on Facebook, Amanda Sparrow Lard. So, I mean, if people have other questions, providing they're reasonable and sensible questions, people are more than welcome to add me. They're more than welcome to ask me questions. And, anything intelligent that comes my way, I will get back to people.
And please keep me updated, Amanda.
I will, of course, I will.
And for everybody listening tonight, thank you so much for joining us. I know we've gone over by nearly an hour, and I do apologise, but when you have a good story, you can't just leave it at an hour.
I believe it's nearly 2 hours.
I know. If you miss any of the shows that are on Parasearch Radio, head over to YouTube, podcast, Facebook page. They are all there to be seen. And don't forget to, Kerry...
click, like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you very about that then, didn't you, boss lady?
I was struggling for my mute button is what I was doing.
Boss lady's hiding. She's hiding with a mute button on. She knows I'm going to throw her in. Guys, thank you so much for listening tonight. Jo, any last words?
I'm just astounded. I need to process quite a lot of that information. Absolutely fantastic interview, wasn't it?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So, just a big thank you to Amanda for coming on and speaking to us Supernaturelle girls. And if you enjoyed what you heard tonight, we're back on next Monday at 9:00. And Parasearch Radio has all different radio shows all throughout the week. So make sure you listen in to Parasearch Radio.
So from us all, guys, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.